Yeah, B. Yeah, B. Yeah, B. Yeah, B.
Check. All right. How y'all doing today? If you haven't been keeping up with the lives, make sure to hit that subscribe. If you are one of those people who keep messaging me, hey, I keep missing these. Well, turn notifications on. Come on, man. All right. Today we are talking about a rumor started by Rafael Barlow, resident draft expert for NBA Locked On Draft, talking about Scoot Henderson and how his camp would welcome a fit with the Toronto Raptors. This mirrors something that I've heard as well about certain guards in the draft, namely Cason Wallace and Kobe Bufkin, having very similar sentiments. Why is it that these guards are eyeing Toronto as such a great fit amidst rumors that the Raptors may be wanting to move up to second or third? There are also rumors that rival general managers are sick and tired of dealing with the Toronto Raptors, Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri. One insider likened it to extracting blood from a stone. I don't doubt it. We're also going to be talking about the potential fit. I'm going to give you a little bit of my take on Scoot Henderson and just what I like about him. As you can probably tell, I have consistently mocked him number 2 over Brandon Miller, despite the gaudy, and incredible analytics and fit and size and versatility and everything that you want to say about Brandon Miller. I've always seen Scoot as the better prospect. And I'll share a little bit about why I feel that is, how he fits with Toronto, potentially if the Raptors do decide to move up to 3 and Brandon Miller is indeed the pick for Charlotte. Reports are that Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson will have another workout in Charlotte, as Charlotte is consistently torn between these two players. We're going to talk about finessing favors, a little bit of something that I've gleaned over the last 15 years of just being around people who are trying to crack through in the media space. And I'll give you a refreshing take, hopefully something original, about how I think these stories tend to take on a life of their own and how I think some of them are a little bit disingenuous, especially when there's millions of dollars on the line. The difference between going 8th and going 14th in the NBA draft is millions of dollars. And when you start to think about, there's no guarantee on that second contract, I can understand millions of dollars on the line. A lot of these kids are coming from, impoverished backgrounds. This is life-changing money for their family. So I fully understand that there's going to be a lot of, I'm on my best behavior right now. I want to go, as high as possible. But there are certain players like Cason Wallace and Scoot Henderson for sure who are eyeing best fit. And I've always admired players who had the wherewithal to say, I'd rather go a spot lower if, it means a better situation for me where I can play right away, or I fit with the coach, or I fit with the culture. It's kind of what I admired about Scottie Barnes and why he went to Florida State. They allowed him to play the position that he wanted. He didn't just want to go to the place where they're going to jack up and let him fuck up every so often. He went to the place that was going to be the best for his development. And I think Scoot is eyeing Toronto for that reason. And finally, towards the end, before we get to all of your questions, I'm not going to be eyeing the chat too much until the very end. So if you send a super chat, or if you have any questions or whatever, drop it in the comments below, and I'll do that at the end, just like I did yesterday. And we're gonna go into the Ringer's egregious, criminally insane trade value list, which I think is so off the mark, and it's going to tie right into that finessing favors and colored bias that I talk about. Before I start this, I just want to say very quickly that there's a lot of parroting going on. Okay, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that if you listen to enough resources, you'll start to see where all these takes are being borrowed from. One guy says it, then another guy says it, then another guy says it, and everyone presenting it as it's their opinion. And I'm not trying to be rude when I say this. Obviously, I've heard someone say something at some point, and I'm sure that I borrowed it, or it has definitely colored. But at some point, have an original thought, bro. Like, do the research for yourself. Don't be so afraid to say something different. I'm listening to people tell me Keontae George, and they're telling me the same stuff that Rafael Barlow is saying on his stuff. He's obviously very high on him. I'm obviously not. And one of us is going to be right and the other one's going to be wrong. And, you can say, well, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, watch the games for yourself, watch full games for yourself, make your own conclusions. And you can either be right or wrong, but I guarantee you're going to learn something. So first, let's talk about this Scoot Henderson thing. All right. I'm going to pull up the quote for you right here. Enough of this. Let me read this out. I'm going to pull this comment off the screen here. I'm hearing there's a good chance Portland will move this pick for an established veteran, with Toronto's Pascal Siakam, the name often mentioned as the Blazers' primary target. Siakam gave Damian Lillard an all-NBA caliber sidekick in his prime, but is Portland willing to give up Shaedon Sharpe to make the deal work? Henderson's camp would welcome the opportunity for Scoot to be the primary ball handler in Toronto, where he would succeed Fred VanVleet, expected to leave in free agency this summer. So much here, right? So the question then becomes, known commodity, unknown commodity, is it worth it? Is there some element of what ifism? What if Scoot doesn't work out? Now you've moved off, definitely your best player, a two-time All-NBA guy. They don't grow on trees. A guy who's still very much in his prime, still a couple years at least left at this very high level in Pascal Siakam. You don't know. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of things going to make Scoot Henderson a really great fit in Toronto. But I think also you just have to map it out. Like, you can't be thinking fit in the draft. I firmly believe until you're like in the 20s, 30s, 40s, you can't be looking at fit too much. You have to look at more or less how that player fits in with the type of basketball you want to play, as opposed to positional needs, or, oh, we have an opening at point guard and he's a point guard, so let's take a point guard. I think if you start thinking that way, you usually screw up, right? That being said, you also do want to have a pathway for that young player to get minutes right away. You do want to have an opening for them in your roster. You don't necessarily want to be drafting a guy in the top 7 who's going to be de facto a third stringer, right? You don't want that either, right? I think the Detroit Pistons are drafting Darko Milicic when they had like such a incredible front court of Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, and I think they had Mehmet Okur. Like, they had a lot of good players ahead of him. And there just wasn't a pathway for that guy to succeed. And they had a glaring, opening for a guy like Dwayne Wade or Carmelo Anthony. Would they have been better off? And, obviously at that case, they had Darko like way up, like in terms of his upside was just higher than Carmelo's. And I don't know how they came to that conclusion if they watched Carmelo at Syracuse. But clearly, we're all going to be wrong about some stuff. We're going to be right about some stuff. But with Scoot Henderson in Toronto, I think he brings so much of what the Raptors have lacked at the point guard spot for so long. Number one, he is incredibly smart. I've watched this guy go up against grown men when he was 17, and he stood out. He stood out as one of the smartest players on the court when he was 17. Granted, some people will say, he relaxed a little bit last year for the G League night. He didn't really take that next step forward. I honestly, I don't care. He has so much going for him, from the way he sees the game to the way he leads to the dog mentality. You know, we talk about dog mentality with Cason Wallace. We talk about dog mentality, you know, with guys like, you know, alpha scorers. But like, this guy has something. He has a stage presence to him, and he really, really reads the game phenomenally, like left to right. And I think more than anything, you know, when the Raptors, hired Darko Rakovic as their head coach, the one player that I'm just like, man, he has so much experience, you know, bringing up guys like this, is Scoot Henderson. I just think that that would be such a phenomenal fit with the way Darko talks about and preaches playing basketball. I've also listened to an hour of Scoot just talking about his thoughts on basketball and how he plays the game and how he sees the game. And it is so aligned. There will be no bad habits to break, right? There will just be skill development that needs to happen. The mid-range jumper is promising. He gets to his spots. He gets paint touches. You know, Darko preaches paint to great, paint to great. Well, Scoot gets into the paint at will. His first step is unstoppable. He has solid NBA size for a point guard. He's going to be one of the best athletes in the he's going to be one of the best athletes in the league on day one. I'm seeing bits and pieces of Donovan Mitchell and Dwayne Wade in his game, the way he slashes and the way he gets past his guy. His handle is exceptional. His skill work is awesome. His court vision, again, like his court vision is just incredible in terms of transition and excitement. You know, this element of excitement is so underrated in basketball. You know, like, is a guy really just box office? Is he fun to watch? Scoot is box office, man. And he is a guy that you would pay to see every single night. The Raptors can bank on that. And I tell you right now, day one, he is more exciting to watch than Pascal Siakam. Not shade on Pascal Siakam. I think some people are going to disagree with that. But if you watch that dude spin, dribble, ISO, Scoot doesn't play that way. Scoot plays fast. Scoot plays explosive, and Scoot plays above the rim. And I just think that, you know, if you have a chance to get this guy and Portland doesn't see the fit with him and Dame Lillard, I'm not really sure what I would do in their situation. I fully understand that he and Dame are not a great fit together. It's a very undersized backcourt. They're both going to need to play 35 minutes a night. How do you make up for that defensively as the league is going bigger? You know, look at a team like the Denver Nuggets, and they're going to have a backcourt of KCP and Jamal Murray, and you're going to be starting, you know, a 6 foot guy and a 6'2" guy. Like, yeah, I understand there's not really a pathway forward with those two guys, and maybe they're reluctant to move off of a known commodity in the Portland community, in the Oregon community, and Dame Lillard. And I'm not trying to say that, you know, I think people sleep on Dame a lot. I think because, you know, he plays on the West Coast. His teams have not always been very good. He hasn't had necessarily the greatest, you know, track record in the playoffs. But man, this guy is firmly a top 50 player of all time. He is still in his prime. He's still playing great basketball. I don't know how you move off of him either. The contract is huge. I'll be honest. If I'm Portland and you're looking at me like, okay, on the one hand, you have Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson. You can hit the reset on this whole thing. You can avoid all of the disasters of Dame's, you know, contract to the next CBA, or you can keep Dame Lillard and you can part out some of these young pieces to get them like immediate help, like Pascal Siakam. I'm sorry, I don't see a team of Damian Lillard, Pascal Siakam, and Jeremy Grant being a de facto championship. So I'd probably be inclined to move Dame in this situation. So I would be in the minority. I guess most people don't agree with that take, but I probably would. I would not trade Scoot Henderson for Pascal Siakam if I was those guys. But if I was the Raptors, sign me up. Absolutely, I'd be all over it. What he does well, I think, you know, is he also plays off the ball phenomenally well. You know, there are a lot of guys in this draft where they play with the ball so often that you don't really know how they would move off the ball. You haven't seen a lot of reps of it. You haven't seen a lot of commitment to it. And so you're just kind of hoping. You're hoping that they're going to be able to screen for guys. You're hoping that they're going to be able to cut off the ball. You're hoping that they're going to be able to, you know where to be, you know, like flare out to the corners. They're not just going to be standing in a corner waiting for their chance. Because I think we saw a lot of that as Raptor fans last year. Scoot is just so smart, man. Take it like, you know, you don't want to believe me. That's fine. Just watch him play. Tell me how often this guy makes a mistake on offense or defense. The way he gets off the screen, he's like a bullet, man. He is a bullet. You set a screen for him. You get a guy like Jakob Poeltl setting a screen for Scoot Henderson. He's going to be in front of the rim in 1 second. there is so much upside with this that if this is even remotely on the table for the Raptors, you take it and you run and you build around Scottie and Scoot for the next 7 years, and you say thank you, because it saves you so much. Not to mention the CBA implications here. It fully gives you a pathway to sign O.G Anunoby to whatever contract he needs without any worry. It'll give you full clearance to sign Scottie and Scoot also when they're extension eligible, and you won't have, this CBA nightmare coming down your neck, because I don't think we've talked about it in any of these lives extensively. The impact of being a tax-paying tax apron team, or a team that exceeds that second apron, but you will see very quickly that teams like the Phoenix Suns, teams like the LA Clippers are going to be so screwed. So screwed. There are so many implications that we haven't talked about. Yeah, we've talked about the signing waived guys, the trades, the cost, etc. But we haven't talked about the draft implications of this. It is such a disaster to not look at what is coming and to deal with it right now. This preventative as opposed to reactive element. And, there are certain teams that are being pretty smart about it, like the Washington Wizards moving off a big contract like Bradley Beal. I don't think he's worth the contract. I don't think he's worth half the contract. I was looking at, the analytics yesterday between him and CP3. Try to sell me on the fact that Bradley Beal is an upgrade over Chris Paul. Seriously sell it to me, other than he's younger. Is he a better player? He had fewer win shares last year. He had a lower box plus minus. He had a lower impact on winning. I'm sorry. I don't think Bradley Beal. Now, granted, if Bradley Beal is your third best player, which he definitively is in Phoenix, yeah, he's like dynamic and he's incredible and whatever, but like, don't sell Chris Paul short. He is still one of the top 15 point guards in the NBA. And what's Bradley Beal? One of the top 15 shooting guards in the NBA. Congratulations. Doesn't play a lick of defense. I'm sorry, I don't really see it. But yeah, sure. From a fit perspective, if Devin Booker's your point guard, Bradley Beal's your two guard, you've had numerous playoff failures with Chris Paul. Maybe you weren't so enamored with the Landry Shamet contract, so you bite the bullet. But the implications down the line for the CBA on that trade are ridiculous. Now, moving on to the next part of this, which is Scottie and Scoot. How does that fit together? I think, to those of you probably saying neither one of these guys can really shoot threes at a consistent rate, I hear you. And I fully get it, right? I fully get it. And I think with Siakam going out, you're really replacing a guy who doesn't take a lot of threes with another guy who doesn't take a lot of threes, which will put the onus on the Raptors to then address three-point shooting at the 4 spot. And I'm not saying the spacing is going to be great, but as we saw with Jakob Poeltl last year, you don't always need to shoot a ton of threes to impact your team's three-point shooting. You need to be able to do a lot of things. Scoot is quick with the ball. Like, he's quick, not only collapsing the defense and forcing breakdowns for the defense, because he's just so quick that I don't really think with a screener like Jakob that they're going to be able to guard him with one defender. So he's always going to force a second defender, or he's going to get right to the front of the rim. That's going to open up all sorts of open threes for your corner shooters. If you have a three-point shooter at the 4 spot and you have O.G Anunoby at the 3 spot, I think those guys are going to get fantastic looks. He's also not a non-shooter, so let's not talk about him like he's just a terrible shooter. He's not. And there's nothing to suggest that he doesn't have the work ethic to develop it. Scottie, as you saw in the opening clip, he is working on his 3-point shot. He's also not a non-shooter. I think people talk about him like he's Ben Simmons, and he's just not. I mean, he had a 5 3-point game. I think some of the 3-pointers that he's been hitting this year or last year were dynamic. Like, they were off the bounce, off dribble combinations, and that's not easy to do. I mean, if you really, I'm going to do it at some point. I think like over the next week or so, at some point when I find some time, I'm going to do it and just break down his jumper from Florida State to first year to second year to this summer, what we're seeing right now. And you can see stage by stage by stage, there is a consistency, a fluidity, less of a hitch. His foot placement is different. There's so much promising shit there to suggest that Scottie could eventually get to a 34 to 35% 3-point shooter. And if at that point, on half decent volume, I don't think you're talking about him in the same light. Granted, the Raptors will still have the Jakob Poeltl problem, but I think he does a lot of good things on the court. There aren't a lot of teams that just play 5 shooters, man. The Celtics have gotten away with playing Rob Williams big minutes. The Utah Jazz had a lot of success for a long period of time playing, Rudy Gobert big minutes. Jared Allen plays big minutes. Evan Mobley plays big minutes. None of these guys shoot threes. So, I mean, with Evan Mobley, I think it was 23% three-point shooter, and Jared Allen shot no threes at all. There is a way to make it work. Obviously, ideally, you'd want all 5 guys to shoot threes. Of course, it would certainly help. It would certainly also help if all 5 guys could switch 1 through 5. If all 5 guys could dribble the ball, more is always better in certain situations. But don't dismiss the quick reads. Scoot Henderson's a hell of a passer. So when he gets into the paint, unlike Fred VanVleet, he's not only going to have the size and athleticism and the paint finishing to be able to collapse a defense quickly, which Fred VanVleet really consistently couldn't, but he's also going to have the size, the dexterity, and the vision to be able to make those really quick passes. And I am just shocked every single time I listen to people talk about Fred VanVleet as this elite facilitator, elite playmaker. Listen to Colin Cowherd the other day talking about how the Celtics need to move off of Marcus Smart, and they would be so wise to trade for Fred VanVleet, who is a pure and prototypical point guard and a great facilitator. And I'm just like, bro, you did not watch this guy play. He's a very limited passer. I mean, he's a safe passer. He's a smart passer, but he's very limited in the types of passes he can throw, the complexity of passes he can throw, and he is extremely limited in the speed at which he throws those passes and the accuracy. I mean, go look at the percentage players actually shot on passes from Fred VanVleet versus the percentage players shot on passes from someone like a Pascal Siakam, or even most importantly, a Scottie Barnes. And you will see that there is a difference, because at the end of the day, the pass is only as good as the situation which you passed it from and the situation you pass it to. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you bolt into the paint and you collapse 2 defenders and you throw it perfectly to the right shooter at the right place in their pocket, that is a great pass. That is advantage generation like you wouldn't believe. Versus dribble the ball for 8 to 10 seconds, you don't get anything, you get shut down, and then you just throw it to a guy with 2 seconds to go and he's covered and he has to take a shot. You might get the assist, but it doesn't mean that it was an advantage generating assist. Scoot gets a lot of advantage generating assists, just like Scottie does. So I think that, drastically, I think if you could run your offense through these 2 guys, I think they're both really unselfish. And if you're talking about culture setting, sure, you have Darko, yeah, you have Jama, yeah, you have Masai, but now you would have 2 cornerstones who buy in completely to team first and selfless basketball. They're wired that way. They don't have to be taught to be unselfish. Scoot Henderson and Scottie Barnes are by nature unselfish. So I would very much welcome this. Now, finessing draft papers. Whew, this is a big conversation. All right. So to anyone who has aspired to work up the corporate ladder that is the NBA, whether you are a photographer, whether you are a scout, whether you are an analyst, whether you are, whatever, you're doing these podcasts, there's always some element of corruption that can come into place when you start interacting with players on a frequent basis. Okay. I've had some brief window into this, that when a player responds positively to you, agrees to sit down to an interview with you, offers you intel, and they're the one player of the 10 players that you targeted that did that, you may not feel as comfortable ripping that player when they do something wrong or being overly critical of that player in your analysis. Because let's be honest, these jobs at the high end, like Masai Ujiri and Steve Kerr, these jobs pay a lot. Being a draft analyst or running a YouTube channel or a podcast, these jobs don't pay a lot. And some of us, not me, but some of us have families. Some of us have kids on the way. Rafael Barlow has a family. I'm not specifically targeting Rafael Barlow, and I'm not specifically targeting anybody. All credit due, Rafael is a great dude, and he knows a lot about the draft, and there's a lot of guys like this. But my point is that when you start getting into, oh, I met this guy at this combine, or I did a sit down interview with this guy, there's always conversations that happen before or after that. There's promises of wanting to do a future sit down with this guy, and you don't want to lose access to that guy. And I get that. I fully get that. I fully understand that. Trust me, I do. Where at what point does your gut which is saying this guy should be drafted a little bit lower, what point do you have to mute that down and just say, but do you really want to start mocking this guy 15th when it's so clear that he wants to go 8th? Or do you keep mocking him 8th in the hopes that he'll see you as someone who championed him all along, right? I think that's an element of human greed that has to go into it, right? I've always spoken favorably about Victor Wembanyama, not because I want to do a sit-down interview with Victor Wembanyama, not because he checks out Pensar basketball stories. No, that's never been it. It's because I believe it. And the day that I don't believe in him, I'm probably going to write unfavorably about him. I try to be good about this. I really do. I understand that some people may see, that my coverage of Scottie and OG is always positive. And that's because I always believe in them. I've never wavered on them for 1 second. But when I'm presented with evidence that Scottie is not hardworking, that Scottie is not going to be a generational, type of superstar talent, when I'll adjust, I promise I'll adjust. And I think that that's fair. And I would hope that, if he's following along with the coverage, I think he would understand that, but I fully understand where if a guy comes on your podcast and this other guy didn't come onto your podcast, or maybe you reached out to 10 prospects for an interview and only 2 of them responded and 8 of them didn't, and 1 of them was specifically rude about it, are you still going to be really fair to the guy who was really rude about it, or the guy who just didn't respond at all? It's complicated. It's human, but it's complicated. Everyone's trying to get paid here. I get that. I fully get that. Everyone's trying to get paid, because let me tell you, the minute you do a sit-down interview with Scoot Henderson, like I'm gonna tell you right now, if I were to get access to Scoot Henderson and be able to do a 1-hour pod with Scoot Henderson, I could pretty much parlay that into like 15 different podcasts with 15 different prospects, because Scoot did it with Pensar basketball. Now this person can do it. Now that person can do it. Everyone needs that one, break. Now, my question is, if one guy gave you a big break, are you really going to rip them in your draft analysis? Probably not. Probably not. And yeah, so I think that's a fair way to look at this. Now, moving on, what is Pascal Siakam really worth? What is Scottie Barnes really worth? Last summer we were talking about Scottie Barnes is worth, Kevin Durant. Now this summer, people are talking about Scottie Barnes like he's a bum. And I'm here to say, I think the Ringer is so wrong about this. There was I can't remember. Was it CBS Sports or something like that? They did a top 100 players. I think Scottie was 87th. Wow. Now, it's one thing to say he's the 87th best player in the NBA, which he's not. He is not. Like, he is, generously speaking, probably a top 50 player. If you're saying, like, okay, let's be super duper duper fair, he's a top 70 player. Like, 87th is ridiculous, and the guys above him were stupid. But let's take a look at the Ringer's top 65 trade value list. And look, I get it, but I don't. I'm just, oh my God, the biases are so real. And I'm going to level a pretty huge accusation here. If you're white, you're going to definitely be higher on Bill Simmons' list of guys. So off the list, Rudy Gobert, Chris Paul, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, Jeremy Grant, Chris Middleton, Julius Randle, Jared Allen, Anthony Simons, James Harden, Jabari Smith, and Marcus Smart. Just a little caveat here. This is not the best players available or anything like that. This is trade value list. If you are a free agent on the cusp of signing a contract that you are not worth, probably you're going to be up and above this. Now, quick thing. Chris Paul is just off the list, but Fred VanVleet doesn't make this list. That's weird to me, man. Anthony Simons over Fred VanVleet to me also is a little bit weird, but I understand because he's younger. Marcus Smart, again, Marcus Smart and Fred VanVleet should have very similar value. If they were both to hit the market right now, I'm pretty sure that they would get very comparable contracts. So I don't really understand this. And Rudy Gobert definitely has lower value today than Fred VanVleet. So I think Fred VanVleet should be on that off the list area, or buyer's remorse. Buyer's remorse, 65. Tyler Hero, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, Kawhi Leonard, a dishonorable mention potentially. Oh my God. Wow. Okay. Bradley Beal. With his contract, I don't see him on this list. I don't think he's worth that much, but that's just me. Tyler Hero, probably a little bit low, but recency bias, be damned. Quality starters, Keegan Murray, just way too high, man. Way too high here. I get that he's young. He broke the record for three-pointers made by a rookie, but come on. Are you kidding me? Like 61st in the NBA in trade value? I don't see it. Sorry. RJ Barrett, DeMar DeRozan, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green. Yo, for real? Draymond Green is that to me is absolutely mental. Derek White, Trae Young, DeJounte Murray. Okay, I understand DeJounte Murray and Trae Young missed the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. Or, they didn't have they didn't have like a great season, but come on, man. Like they didn't miss the playoffs. They got bounced in the first round. But like, come on. Like, are we kidding here? 55th? Like 54. Like DeJounte Murray is making $16 million. $16 fucking million. And he's less valuable than Jalen Green, which is spelled wrong incorrectly, but still, like, he's less valuable than Austin Reeves, Cade Cunningham, Brandon Miller. Wow. Like, color me what the fuck. I don't think DeJounte Murray is less valuable than LaMelo Ball right now. I'm going to tell you right now, with all the injuries and all the maturity issues and stuff, I would rather have DeJounte Murray than LaMelo Ball. I probably would put them closer together, but a gap of LaMelo Ball being 36th and DeJounte Murray being 54th is ridiculous. DeJounte is a great defender, and he's a good player. I think the fit was a little bit awkward. Bro, he was an all-star. He's 25, 26 years old. Are you kidding here? All right. Group. Upside gang. This is where this falls apart so hard. Jalen Green, Shaedon Sharpe, based on what? Based on like a good month? He's that high based on a good month? Jalen Green, what has he shown? I'm sorry, Tyrese Maxey, way too low on Tyrese Maxey, by the way. Scottie Barnes at 50 on a trade value list? Are you kidding me right now? Austin Reeves. Okay, I understand the Austin Reeves hype. If he was in your bias for more stuff, I'd get it because he doesn't make a lot of money. But he's about to get paid too, bro. He's about to get paid. And once he gets paid, he will no longer be anything close to on this list. What are you talking about? Brandon Miller, hasn't played a single game, but let's put Brandon Miller on here. Scoot Henderson and Cade Cunningham. Are you telling me right now, if teams could choose between Cade Cunningham and Scoot Henderson, they would choose Cade Cunningham? You got to be kidding me. 4-year rookie contract versus 2 years left on a rookie contract. Injury prone. Yeah, look, I am warming up on Cade. Maybe, there is an injury issue. It's the same thing that I am humble and open enough to realize that, yes, sometimes a guy just simply hasn't had a chance to show that he's what he can do when he's healthy. But come on, man. Cade Cunningham over Scottie Barnes? Bruh, Cade Cunningham will not have more win shares after 4 years than Scottie's had in 2 years. I want to say bet on that. He's had negative win shares, I think, for the first 2 years. So he's got an uphill climb on that one. Sorry, he's worth more to us than you. O.G Anunoby at 45, Brandon Ingram, Aaron Gordon, Desmond Bane, Domantas Sabonis. Quick little news flash for you. O.G Anunoby is definitely worth more than Aaron Gordon to any general manager who deserves to have a job. That's crazy to me. And Desmond Bane, probably a little bit low here, in my opinion. Group H, if you tell Woj, I'll deny it to death, but I'm listening. Number 40, LeBron, Paul George, Drew Holiday, Karl-Anthony Towns, LaMelo Ball, Pascal Siakam, Jaylen Brown. Raptor fans, rejoice, right? Pascal Siakam worth more than Paul George, Drew Holiday, Karl-Anthony Towns, LaMelo Ball, and LeBron James. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't even think Pascal's worth more than O.G Anunoby to most teams out there. But hey, if that's true, if that's actually the way teams think, I'll be happy to hear it. That'd be great. Group G, too young, too cheap, too good. Please stop calling us. Chet Holmgren. Oh my God. Yo, a dude who hasn't played a single game in the NBA, who broke his foot in a pro-am game, who has all sorts of questions in terms of health, upside, offensive, defensive. Like, you just call this the white guy group, right? Chet Holmgren at 33. He shouldn't even be on the off the list part. Are you kidding me? Lauri Markkanen. Yeah, I get it. Lauri Markkanen, I get it. Walker Kessler, really? This high? Really? No, man. No. Yeah, I get he's on a rookie contract. Maybe we can put him in quality starters group. Maybe you replace Walker Kessler with where Keegan Murray is, but this is ridiculous. Franz Wagner. I'm starting to understand the Franz Wagner hype, but 30 is insanely high for Franz Wagner. Okay. Like you start putting him in 40s, I think you're being fair, but he's on a losing team 2 years in a row. What do you, very talented player. I fully understand, but I don't get Franz, Cade, etc. over Scottie. I would still take Scottie over Franz based on the offensive upside alone. Okay. And let's not even talk about Josh Giddey being at 22. Are you starting to see the value of being white being on this list? That's so stupid, man. The incredibly touchable untouchables, Zion Williamson, Ja Morant. Then let me save you some time. No. Dame Lillard, Mikal Bridges, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Josh Giddey, Jalen Brunson, Anthony Davis, De'Aaron Fox. Jalen Brunson way too high. Donovan Mitchell way too low. Mikal Bridges probably a little too high. If that's really his value, I certainly don't think the trade that you saw last year would have happened. Great player, really great player, one of my favorite players in the NBA, but really 25 is a little high. Paolo Banchero at 18. Yo, let me put this into perspective for you. Paolo's rookie season was not more impressive than Scottie's rookie season at all. It wasn't. I don't give a shit what you say about the numbers. They're not the right number. You're not looking at the right numbers. If you think Paolo Banchero was better than Scottie Barnes as a rookie, you're crazy. Okay. Tyrese Halliburton, Evan Mobley, Bam Adebayo, Jaren Jackson Jr. Bam is way too high. Way too high. There's no chance in fucking hell that he is the 15th most valuable player. He's on a max contract and he might show up, might not show up. You're telling me Bam Adebayo is more valuable right now than Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, Donovan Mitchell? You think, dude, I don't think Bam Adebayo is more valuable than Scottie Barnes. I would say no 1,000 times over if that deal was presented. Jaren Jackson Jr., I get it. He's high for a good reason. Jimmy Butler, a little high. I understand he just, carried the team to the finals, etc. But he is older. He is very, very extremely well paid. I don't think there's a chance that you could convince some of these teams to get off some of these younger players above him for him right now. Joel Embiid at 11. I hate Joel Embiid more than, like anything. But I'll tell you right now, that's a little bit low on him. He is, a superstar. He's a former MVP. Like Jamal Murray, recency bias, fucking hell. Jamal Murray is better than Tyrese Halliburton. Jamal Murray is better than Jaren Jackson Jr. Jamal Murray is better than Dame Lillard. Jamal Murray is better than Donovan Mitchell. You put Donovan Mitchell in Denver next to Nikola Jokic in that offense. Are you kidding me? But okay, well, he averaged 10 assists in the finals, so he's a guy. He's so stupid. All right. Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker. I'm starting to agree with this. Anthony Edwards a little too high for me. I can't get that high on him right now. Show me something else. Jason Tatum, Steph Curry, Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic. Okay, so here's a question for you. If I call the Philadelphia 76ers right now and I say, I will give you Steph Curry for Joel Embiid, you think they're saying yes? Really, given the age difference between those two players? You think if I called the Boston Celtics right now and said, I'll give you Victor Wembanyama for Jason Tatum, you think they're saying yes? I think Victor is going to be a hell of a player. I think he'll be, I think if you had him at 9, 10, whatever, I would understand. Maybe because of the hype and because of the marketing value of it, I can understand how you can get higher on him. But putting him above Jason Tatum, Shai, Joel Embiid, that's a little bit hard for me to make that gap. Overall, not the worst list in the world. I'm sure if I desperately tried, I could make a worse list myself. But just my opinion, I think Scottie is definitively a top 20 to 25 asset in the NBA. And I think it'll only go higher as he has a better year, bounce back year. All right. Now, 194 comments. Let me get to them. And for once in my life, I think I'm actually going to get out of here before an hour. So that'd be great. All right. Okay. Where are we at? have a starred comment. Oh, James McPherson. Thank you so much for the super sticker, man. Really, really appreciate it. I did not realize that they automatically do that. Okay, every year they say the same thing. I'm player measure panel, one player panel to Cunningham, generational talent. Okay. Yeah, Scottie doesn't want to play point guard, but I think he would share those point guard responsibilities with a player that he trusts, like Scoot. Scoot plays the same way as Scottie plays. Smart. How do you know that? Scoot is going to enjoy running it back and losing fans like Grizzlies Vancouver. Oh, Mark Anderson. I think Mark Anderson goes to ChatGPT and he just goes every single day. And he's just like, ChatGPT, what is the dumbest thing I could say about basketball? And ChatGPT gives him everything that he's going to be writing. We keeping P skills, and that's the right way. I mean, I'm not opposed to keeping him, but if the offer on the table is Scoot Henderson, I think you take it and run. Michael Grange said the same. You know, he said it's going to run it back, whatever. I think that's a really good omen. Michael Grange also said that we were going to draft Joe and Suggs over Scottie Barnes. I think, you know, he's been wrong a lot. So, look, and you know, he's not immune to the finessing favors part too. Obviously, a lot of people, you know, the Raptors, if the Raptors start to let it leak that they want to blow this thing up, I think it diminishes the value that you can get back for, you know, if once team sense that you're desperate, you really want to move off this guy, whatever. I think it really diminishes the amount of value you can extract back in the trade. So I appreciate the Raptors playing close to the chest, saying like we can go either way. But man, Jama, Darko, do the math, man. They're going young. I think they're going to go young. I think they're very much leaning towards it. And they just need to find a way to make sure that they don't get fleeced on the players that they have. You know, I'm not a huge Bradley Beal fan, but I certainly think that's that's selling him a little bit short. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, look at his shooting percentage. He hasn't been a great shooter, but he also gets a lot of coverage, a lot of attention. He has a reputation as being, you know, the star, and so I'm very curious to see what he'll do as a third option in Phoenix. It could completely unlock him. He also hasn't been on very good teams in a while. Is that a motivating factor? Is he the type of guy who's going to, you know, finally show up because he has a chance to do something special? He has the talent. He's always had the talent. He's a top 3 pick for a reason, but I'm just not sold on the defense, you know. And again, if you want a recurring theme of this channel, I like two-way players. I've always liked two-way players. I don't like one-way players. That could work. You know, the Celtics played Jason Tatum a lot at the 4. I don't think this concept of like playing, yeah, you know what? That's a really great, really great argument. And then, you know, maybe you could also, you know, if he's healthy, play Otto at the 4, Otto and you know, Scoot, Scottie, Otto, you know, or, you know, you put Scottie at the 3 and he's a point forward. You put Scoot at the 1 and you bring back Gary Trent Jr. He's a 2. So you got some spacing there. And now you're like four guys, 4 out with Jakob in the middle. I think Jakob complicates things. It just makes that trade all the more silly in thinking about it. But if I'm the Hornets, you can have the second pick. Give me Zion. You know, Zion is from the Carolinas. You know, he's from that area. And I wonder if at this point being closer to home would be a good thing for him or a bad thing for him. He's a hell of a talent. And if you're ending up going to pick Brandon Miller, I'd take Zion Williamson over Brandon Miller. I understand, you know, the concerns about Zion, but when he plays, he's like a top 10 player in the NBA. I don't think Brandon Miller's ever going to get there. But, you know, one guy's on a rookie contract, one guy's already maxed out, one guy's a little bit older. I understand, but I don't think these are comparable prospects. Just my I think Scoot would play point, and I think Scottie would play, you know, a secondary initiator in this case. But I think they could share the responsibility. I think they could. I don't think modern basketball is played this way. You know, Nikola Jokic has played point pretty much for the Denver Nuggets for 2 years. I mean, he's never been billed as a point guard. He's always been advertised as a center. He's center on the All NBA ballots, and you know, okay. Still real. I don't see Masai trading Pascal for Scoot. It's the fear of Scoot flopping and him having to rebuild and stopping him from doing it. I don't think Scoot can flop, bro. Emin Thompson can do things. Oh my God. There was a tweet that I read today from someone with a blue check mark. I cannot remember who the hell it was. I think FA sent it to me or somebody sent it to me. Emin Thompson is the best athlete they've ever seen. Bro, I want to mix that tweet up with a fucking, video of Vince Carter jumping over Friedrich Weiss. Just like best athlete ever. Yo, if you saw Vince in high school, he could grab quarters off the top of the backboard. Think about that. You ever seen a backboard? Like, think about how high that is. That's 12 plus feet up. He could grab quarters off of it. It's insane. Yo, like, I mean, there have been such great athletes in the NBA. Zion, such a great athlete. This is just the hype machine. This guy's the greatest this, the greatest that, it drums up the intrigue, but I don't think it's realistic. Greatest athlete ever is fucking crazy. I do, but if he and Scoot do it together, I think that's great. I think it's a little bit like Jokic and Jamal Murray, like you can share the responsibility for sure. They can both be point guards. You can have two guys who can initiate the offense. Like in their prime, if you had had a chance to pair like a Jason Kidd on a Grant Hill, like that would be great. I think you'd be a great team if you could do that. Or like a Tracy McGrady and a Chris Paul. Like I know they didn't play like necessarily at the same time. They didn't hit their peak at the same time, but that pairing works, And Tracy was a great initiator. He was a great passer. I think passing is one of the most underrated parts of Tracy McGrady's game. It can work. I mean, shit, Desmond Bane grew a lot as a lead initiator. He played with John Morant, right? There's so many examples of this where you have multiple initiators that can initiate from both sides. One from the inside, one from the outside. They can switch. They can invert it. Yeah, I just like the lineup versatility and athletic potential of Scoot Henderson. I think you mean. Do you mean bust? Yeah, and also the angle might not be ideal. Brandon Miller is better than Scoot. Maybe. I don't think so. You heard correct. I've always found like Brandon Miller, the odd thing is like so often when he got inside the paint, like he wasn't going directly into contact. He was sort of more like shying away from it. I don't know if that's protecting himself. There's also like extensive talk. Rafael Barlow went on Locked On Raptors with Sean Woodley or whatever his name is. And, he's talking about Keontae George and how Keontae was injured the entire time and, how he didn't have, like, he was 20 pounds overweight and when he initially signed up. And it's just like, to me, this just sounds like, wow, the laundry list of excuses at this point to, like, I'm sorry, man, this is like a pretty large sample size that he played. If he was a great playmaker, you would have seen it. If he had like, if he had great shot selection, if he had a great feel for the game or whatever, you would have seen it. I understand that a guy could be injured. Ankle injuries can be a bitch. They can totally hinder your ability to sort of like launch off. But he wasn't just a little bit off, like with Scottie, you could tell he was like a little bit off. Like in December, you can tell he's wincing and he didn't have that burst. And I thought of something, you saw it, but I've never really seen that. I understand he had a good pro day. I understand some people are going to swear by Keontae George. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you polled the average Raptor fan right now, I think Keontae George is the guy. It's probably a really, really good indication that he's not going to be their pick on draft night. Just saying. Man, if the Raptors end up with, please no, if the Raptors somehow end up with Scoot Henderson and Vila Coulibaly on the draft and move off of Pascal and that signals, Fred's not coming back, I will throw a parade. Y'all are invited. I would definitely throw a parade. I don't know what it costs to throw a parade. Someone let me know. What does it cost to throw a parade? Yes, he is. Isn't that crazy? That's fucking nuts, man. This is why Bobby was hired for the day-to-day because other GMs are nervous when caller says Masai. It started when the Knicks backed out of the Lowry trade and it's snowballed since. Look, man, the Raptors have pretty much not won a single trade in like 2-3 years. At this point, I think GMs can relax. Masai is human. Murray is a Raptor. What does that mean? I was waiting for you, man. I wait for you with bated breath every single time I release a video. I'm just like, what is this guy gonna say? I'm really curious, you know, because it's always the same thing, right? Scottie sucks. Pascal's amazing. I hope, you know, honestly, I don't have anything against Pascal Siakam. If there's anything I have against Pascal Siakam, it's his fans. It's people like you, right? And I hope if he gets traded, y'all go with him personally. Like, I would like Pascal Siakam, like a realistic version of Pascal Siakam who has a balanced perspective on who he is as a player. But every time people talk about him, they say all NBA, 25 points per game. Look at the metrics, man. Look at the impact on winning. Look at the play style. Look at how much your roster has to adjust to playing his style of basketball. There's a quote from Tracy McGrady. It says, you know, if you can get your game off in 3 dribbles, you're great. And if you can't, you're not. And Siakam needs like 25 dribbles to get his game off. And that's what stagnates the offense for me. I agree. This list is cringe. Why should we care what others think about us focusing on the draft? Yeah, we still don't believe you. Easily Giddey is better than Scottie? He is easily not. I mean, my God. I don't think most people I don't think most people think Scottie is more valuable than Victor Wembanyama. But if you tell me 15 years from now that Scottie ended up being the better player, I wouldn't doubt it at all. We're talking all of these guys, Wemby, Scottie, Tatum, Shea. Like, to me, these are all guys who have max MVP upside. Now, some people may not be that high on Scottie, given his second-year struggles. I remain that high on Scottie. There's no guarantee that he ever ends up hitting that, but he could. He certainly could. There's nothing going to stop him from it. Yeah, I was pretty pissed. I would keep Wemby over Tatum, but not Curry. That's interesting. Scottie is amazing. Agreed. Jalen Green is more of a threat. Is that who you mean by JG? Oh, no, I mean, like ChatGPT, like the worst possible takes on basketball, period. I fully agree. Beal's a hooper, y'all must forgot. You must come from the, Keontae George is a hooper, y'all must forgot camp. I think people just overvalue skills so much, and they don't look at the physics of basketball, the efficiency of basketball. There's so many things that come into this. You know, there's like an eye test, we are usually introduced to prospects in 2-minute clips, and it's very easy to dazzle in a 2-minute clip. You know, in a 2-minute clip, you could really fall for Josh Jackson. In a 2-minute clip, you could fall for DeJuan Wagner. You could fall for an O.J. Mayo being like the next best player in the NBA. In 2-minute clips, you start watching the full game, you start seeing their off-ball awareness, you start seeing like how they help other teammates score, you start seeing their commitment to defense, their attention to detail, their hustle, how do they dive for loose balls, all this stuff. You know, when you really hone in and slow down the game, watch everything that happens off the ball that impacts winning or losing, I think you end up with a very different impression of Bradley Beal. Again, not saying that he's not going to thrive in Phoenix. I just think that what you took on in that contract is not worth what you got back. Bufkin over Cason. So yesterday I mentioned that I was softening my stance on Cason Wallace a little bit. I talked to someone this morning about Cason Wallace, and let's just say through the course of a 45-minute conversation, I have flipped right back. If Cason falls 13 and the Raptors get him, I think you're in good hands. He's also a player who's really prioritizing, his next stop being not going as high as possible. He just wants to end up in the right situation. I have always viewed that as a very positive sign for draft prospects. If they're thinking already about their next contract, that's a really smart thing, because that means that they're actually going to work towards it. And everything that I've seen from Cason Wallace so far, everything I've read from his interviews, everything I've seen from him, the tape, the games, everything just screams to me that this is a guy who's going to do whatever it takes to play the right way, winning basketball. And we always talk about the dog. This guy's got the dog. Kelsey Plum's got the dog. This guy's got the dog, whatever. Cason Wallace got the dog, man. He is like a competitor. Like, he is a fierce competitor. I don't know what the offensive upside is with him. I don't know what the burst is going to be like with the shot. Is it going to come off the dribble? Is he going to be able to peel off screens? Is he going to be able to get downhill? What's his, shiftiness like, right? He also had some injury stuff. So I don't know, but I trust Cason Wallace at 13 for sure. Yes, indeed, sir. Which principle of the 11 is most important? Too bad I just peeled that thing off. Wait, where the hell are we? Which principle of the 11 is most important of Darko Rakovic if Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet are back? I don't remember the principles off by heart. So in fairness, I don't think that I'll be able to quote it exactly, like what it was versus what it was. So you'll be able to line it up. But I think if you're open, if you doubled pass the ball off, like make quick reads, 0.5, that element of, quick decisions, whether you're pass, dribble, shoot, not just meandering with the ball, surveying, etc., trying to get your own rhythm. Because obviously, like, if you play a lot of pickup basketball in the off season, which, unfortunately a lot of guys do play a lot of pickup, you understand that there's a rhythm to the basketball, right? And there's also an energy to the basketball that, if it does not get shared around, loses certain guys, right? You start to charge and activate guys. I think for a lot of people who play 2K, I don't know, some of you guys have 2K, there's like a shot meter, right? There's also like a guy gets hot, right? I think the less you touch the ball, the more out of rhythm you fall. So that when you get the ball, it's like when you get the ball for the first time in like 4 minutes, because like one guy's just been dominating. It feels a little uncomfortable on your hands because you haven't been touching. You'll see guys sometimes, when there's free throws, they'll just go and they'll touch the ball. It's very important for players to touch the ball in an offense. It's super important. And playing this sort of analytics basketball that Nick Nurse was playing, where, okay, we're just going to keep the ball centered on like 2 guys' hands, 3 guys' hands. We'll do like a couple of dribble handoffs in the beginning, but like the guys are never really being put in positions to consistently be threats to score, and they're not really finding other guys. And then over some period of time, you'll see the offense sort of start to sag, because if guys are never going to pass and other guys aren't going to cut, because what's the point? You're already exerting yourself on defense, tired legs, etc. And then eventually, you just fall out of rhythm, and then you're shooting like these terrible percentages. There are a few teams in the league. I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, where it's like almost like everyone shot poorly. Like there was like every 37% guy became a 33% guy. Every 33% guy became a 30% guy. And it's just like it's consistent, that sort of 3-4% dip across the board. And I think that could come down to offense. So here's a question for you is like, if you could make every single Raptor on this team 3% more efficient from 3, would you have been a way better team? Of course. My God, you would have been a much better team. 3% is all it takes. 3%. 3% turns Scottie into a 32% three-point shooter. 3% might turn Fred into like 38%, 37% three-point shooter. I mean, you're good. If you can get those numbers, you're good. But too often, the Raptors were shooting like collectively like 20% from 3, and I think it's very, very hard to overcome that. Even when you are winning the possession battle on a night-to-night basis, you're just losing so many points on the 3-point line. Yeah, absolutely, that'd be cool. It'd be great if we could draft both Scoot and Jordan Hawkins. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. Absolutely. No, I don't think I would. I think that would be selling low. I mean, this is a 2-time All-NBA guy in his prime, 2-time All-Stars. Contract's not that bad. Looks like he'll be, open to an extension with Toronto. I don't see why you're moving that for what? What are you moving that for? Taylor Hendricks? You're going to move that for Grady Dick? Like, nah. I understand, like the draft is it's tricky, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, well, you have 9 and 16. You can certainly move up to 3. It doesn't work that way. And I'm not really sure what the exact valuation is for each draft pick, but let's just say it's probably higher than you think, right? Because there's always this sort of defensive stance that GMs take when they're moving down the draft, that I'll be the next Brian Colangelo. That's basically what it is, right? Not the next Brian Colangelo, but more like what Danny Ainge did, right? You remember when Danny Ainge had the number 1 overall pick and he was willing to trade back 2 spots because he wanted Jason Tatum, and everyone was convinced that it was the Lonzo Markelle Fultz draft, right? And he knew that, and he felt in his gut that he was fine with all 3 guys, but he really preferred Jason Tatum. And so he moved back and he got extra assets for that. And there aren't a lot of GMs who have the guts to do that, because most of them feel like if you take a guy, you would end up being the Luka Doncic basically situation that Atlanta went into, right? Atlanta is still chastised to this very day based on how the media has covered that trade of, look, like, what the fuck did you do that for? You had Luka and you traded him for Trae Young because you didn't see the big difference. Now do you see the big difference? And it's so like, it's become rooted in that franchise's identity that they always need to prove that they were okay or right for taking that to the given Trae, this like massive role on offense. And maybe it hasn't always been to his benefit. And, you know, there was like a lot of stuff that he did in college off the ball, and they've just kind of made him like an on-ball chucker. And because they've had some modicum of success in the playoffs with him, they've always felt like they were trying to prove to their fan base that they were right to move off of Luka Doncic. Well, they weren't right then, and they're not right now. And I think a lot of GMs feel that way. So if you have the 7th pick, 6th pick, whatever, and you feel like you can get something of value at 9 and 16, and you want to take the extra asset, it takes a lot of guts to move that, you know. Now, that being said, you know, 8, 9, I don't think it's materially that different from 13. So, you know, the conundrum here for the Raptors, and sort of the irony here, is that by getting Jakob Poeltl, you effectively turned what was, you know, the Portland Trailblazers have the 3rd pick right now, right? That's the pick that you want. Need I remind you that at the trade deadline, the Portland Trailblazers and the Toronto Raptors pretty much had virtually identical records. If I remember correctly, I think Portland was ahead of the Raptors. So if you had just done what Portland done and you had some success in the lottery, you probably end up with the pick that you're trying to trade now. And so the pick, not to mention the future pick that you traded next year and the 2nd rounder and the other 2nd rounder, forget all of that. I'm just saying straight swap what you did to your pick this year. So the pick that you might end up trading Pascal Siakam for is the pick you already would have had if you had not gone for Jakob Poeltl. Y'all feeling a little bit better about that D grade I gave that fucking Jakob Poeltl trade? It was never against Jakob. I'm going to just reiterate that one more time. I like Jakob Poeltl. But man, where you were as a team, as a franchise, even if you had made the play-in, I seriously, like, if you made the playoffs, and, you know, I don't think they necessarily had much of a chance against Milwaukee, although I think they could have been competitive in 6 games or something like that. I don't know if that was worth it. I really don't, for what you gave up. But hey, you got bounced in the play-in. Now you have the 13th pick instead of the 15th pick, and hopefully you get someone really good. And, you know, at the end of the day, does anyone really care that the Utah Jazz didn't tank hard enough? Because they did end up with 13th pick, and they ended up with Donovan Mitchell, right? And Donovan Mitchell, you know, in a redraft for that year, probably goes number 3 or number 2 or number 1. It's the same thing with Pascal Siakam, right? He went 27th overall, and if you did the redraft today, he probably goes top 3 in that draft, you know, with Jaylen Brown, Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, probably in that order. Or maybe Brandon Ingram goes first, Pascal goes second, Jaylen goes. It's going to be those 3 guys in the top 3. So you extract top 3 value out of the 27th pick if you can extract top 3 value out of the 13th pick. And you can also extract the 3rd pick for Pascal Siakam and get top 3 value there. Well, then, wow. And now you're sitting pretty. Because imagine if this draft 5 years from now breaks down to the Raptors got 2 of the top 3 players in this draft at 3 and 13. That would be phenomenal. Now you're sitting pretty. Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, look, I think that's sort of the lost part of this too. I think Christian Coloco's top end upside is a little bit higher than Jakob Poeltl's, just based on the jump shooting potential. And he has a lot of the same Jakob Poeltl-y skills. You know, he just isn't physically where Jakob is, nor is he mentally where Jakob is yet. But all the instincts are there, the size is there, the versatility is there. I think he's a little bit more switchable than Jakob. He has great, instincts as a passer in the short roll. I think he has a really fluid looking jump shot. He hit that three, where Scottie was super excited for him. Like he has like something, man. Like I'm telling you, like some people just sleep on Christian Koloko like a throwaway. And I've just been so high on this guy since we drafted him last year. So I like him. I like him a lot. And I think if he was your starting small, center going forward, yeah, you're probably not expecting to compete anytime soon. But at the very least, you're not having this conundrum right now of like, oh my God, we have this one non-shooter that we have to like work everything around. Like I think there's a very smart reason that the, San Antonio Spurs moved off of Jakob Poeltl despite his greatness really as a playmaker and as a defender and as a facilitator and even as a finisher inside. It's largely because it's really difficult in the modern NBA to play with a complete non-shooter, and your other guys have to basically all be shooters, and your other guys include Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes. So it's just, I'm not really sure what they were thinking there. The fit was always a little bit clunky, but whatever. It is what it is. Anyways, talk to y'all later. I'm going to go work on that video I alluded to yesterday about Serbian basketball and the ascent and all that stuff. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We will be doing a draft live. I don't know how we're going to do it. If you have ideas, drop it in the comment below. I don't know how to broadcast the live, you know what I mean? So the only thing I could think of would be that I would watch the live, or I would watch the draft kind of on mute, and then I would be doing the draft on the mock draft thing and talking about it. But it feels like, I don't know. I would prefer to be able to stream the draft, but I don't know how to do that legally. So if you have any ideas on how to do that, I would be more than open to it. I really don't want to be staring at a screen that y'all can't see. It's kind of weird. I don't know. But I really want to do it live. So we'll see. Maybe I do audio only and I just keep the big board up. You know what I mean? Like I just do like the board, and as it's going, like as the players get picked, I'll just do audio only. And then you'll just see the screen and you'll hear me talking, but you won't be able to see me because I'll probably be like biting my nails, waiting for things to break. I also don't want to be listening to the whole thing on mute. You know what I mean? Because like they're saying stuff and trades are breaking as it's going. So I don't know. It'll be complicated, but luckily we have 3 days to figure it out. So if you have ideas, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram or something. If you know, like, oh, this website's going to be streaming it and you won't get demonetized for it or whatever, I would love to do that. Anyways, y'all take care and have a good one. Peace. Oh, and I would very much appreciate if you hit like on your way out. It is free, and you'll have good luck for a week if you do. Okay, peace. Bye.